Every now and then, marketing world reaches a stale stage of needing innovation. It happens when the market gets saturated with specific methodology, style, and similar type of offers. What we see is the same types of messages, people copy pasting other creators' points of view and information, leaving the consumers confused, defensive, and untrusting. That's when a need for authenticity and connection becomes prevalent in the decision making process of the customer. But somehow, marketers prefer to stay in the old style marketing zone, choosing the wrong role models and keeping stuck or taking their marketing efforts to the extreme. And today, me and my guest, we're going to be dissecting the main pitfalls of using copy paste, cookie cutter strategies and how that prevents business owners from standing out of the crowd. My guest today is Marcus Matthews, former cop turned clinical hypnotherapist and life transformational coach. His zone of genius revolves around helping people understand their feelings and empowering them towards reaching new heights. In his practice, he uses a blend of different modalities such as hypnosis, coaching, and therapy. And as he says himself, he resides somewhere on the precipice of science meets spirituality. Despite his many achievements, awards, certifications, as well as celebrity clients, he is as real as it gets, and his main focus always remains on client results. Founder of Make Your Life Count and a certified trainer with Marissa Peer Hypnotherapy School, he's also a coach for Mind Valley EverCoach, my fellow executive contributor for Brains Magazine, and a podcast host for Talking Minds. A true powerhouse, and someone I immediately enjoyed speaking to, as just like me, he believes we've all got the right answers inside of us. They're just waiting to be unlocked. So without further ado, let's get on with today's episode of Habits of Influence, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of entrepreneurship and building a movement.
Everything that happens is motivation.
Hello, Marcus. So awesome to see you again.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
I'm very good. Yourself?
Good. I'm good. I'm good. I've been doing some admin today, so I did the boring stuff that has to be done, but it's been done. So I feel a bit better. I feel cleansed. I've done some admin today. So
Awesome.
yeah, good.
When we first met, well, you've had quite an intense, visceral, negative reaction to marketing when I told you that I'm a marketer, which thankfully subsided when we had a chat. But you did tell me you don't really like marketing. Now, working with many business owners throughout your journey or throughout your career, what do you think might be the main reason that this once, no, let's be honest, esteemed position has gained such a very bad rap?
Do you know what? I think it's trust. We know that as human beings that we want to be surrounded by people that we connect with and that we trust. And I will say this because Richard Branson says that if you're going to spend any money, spend it on your marketing, right? He does say that. So I'm going to say I don't hate marketing. I think probably a broad term that I use. What I hate is people who go after you and say, I can market this, I can bring this in, I can bring that. But there's a big difference between bringing your product to people and getting likes and clicks and actually bringing value. And I think that's the big thing. Me personally, my core values are about honesty, integrity, and yes, with marketing we have to make it pretty and we have to flower things up a little bit, but I still think there needs to be a core message underpinning that so that the consumer doesn't feel as though they're being duped. And unfortunately, in the space that I work, which is that kind of that area where therapy meets coaching, that transformation space, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for the money. And it's sometimes difficult to break through that to show your true authentic self.
Yeah, I agree. Even, earlier today, I read a question on Quora. A person was actually asking, it was in a business group, can you do business without lying? Now, it's gone to the point where it's so bad that people actually seriously have to ask those questions. And why do you think that is? Why are we inclined to I mean, there's this whole fake it till you make it mentality, right? And it's completely understood because we want to present ourselves as best as we can. That's part of marketing, right? Personal branding. We want to show ourselves as the knowledgeable, experienced, preferably authorities in our fields. But why do so many people kind of go back to cheating, lying, kind of bending the truth? Why can't it just be authentic? Why do people believe, in your opinion, of course, that it's necessary in order to achieve all of those things, the status, the authority, and the showing your knowledge?
It's interesting because I've just been writing something for Marissa Peer for the newsletter that they do, because they wanted some articles. And Simon Sinek, who I'm sure you know Simon Sinek, but he's got a marketing background. He starts with his why. And one of the things that Simon says is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And people don't recognize that people buy from people, and people buy from those stories, and people buy. So yes, if you have a physical product and you want a quick sell, that's pretty easy if it's a tangible product. But in the place where I sit, that type of marketing doesn't translate. So a lot of the people that may be coming to you are saying, we can help this, we can help that, we can help the other. They're using a very old style of kind of pressure marketing instead of telling story and making connection, which is actually part of our safety system. And again, the marketing people kind of always win because there is no guarantee, right? There is no guarantee that whatever you put out there lands. No. People spend thousands and thousands of pounds on something that doesn't land, and somebody does a TikTok video the next minute, they've gone viral. So it is difficult. You've got the algorithms, you've got all the rest of it. But I think for me, it is about that thing that you say. I think the reason why people lie or they fabricate the truth is mainly because they don't feel good enough within themselves. They can't step in their true authenticity. They feel that if they show up vulnerable, Brené Brown says there is no courage without vulnerability, but vulnerability can be deemed as weakness depending on who the recipient is. So I think in my particular area where we're talking with people who are going through difficult stuff, right, and especially people who maybe are wearing that armor and they're not kind of willing to go down that therapy coaching route because they don't want to be deemed as being weak, a lot of people will come in. I always think of it's like trying to swim to Alcatraz, or the beach is nice and then you've got to swim through the sharks, and then when you get through the other, you've learned something about sharks on the other side, and then you learn how to use the sharks to be able to get to where you need to get to. Maybe a crap analogy, but my point is my point is that I think that good marketing works, but I think it's very difficult for people to choose the right people who understand your brand, understand your message, and can do that in an authentic way. I think there's a lot of people in the marketing space themselves that are faking it until they're making it, and they're just after the big bucks.
Yeah. And you said something interesting, and I want to kind of brush off of that. You told me, you said about the importance of the story, the importance of being vulnerable, and yes, I completely agree with you on that. What I do not agree with, and I think a lot of people struggle with, is using social media or using your brand as a form of therapy. And this is something I've been talking about on the podcast many times. People go through obviously different stages, different challenges, whether it is the personal life or the business life, and then they immediately feel pressured because everybody had been telling them that they need stories, that they need to use it in their marketing. And I think what kind of makes people lose here is using the stories that they have not processed yet, or using the challenges that they have not overcome and they're not yet on the other side. And that's what's creating this kind of, first of all, it's pressure marketing, right? Second of all, it's kind of too much vulnerability for the likes of our clients. And I think that puts off a lot of people. And it kind of presents this caricature of a situation, of a story, because we feel that we must show that we are so great and we need to overcome things and so on and so on, to the point that those stories become absolutely ridiculous. And usually they kind of have the same format, don't they? I've almost, brushed shoulders with death. I had an accident or whatever, and tragedy happened, and I almost died, and then I had an epiphany, and then I decided I'm going to hurt people. It's kind of, it's just same old, same old.
Yeah.
It's
And I
not
agree with you.
revealing.
It's like it sounds like a miracle. The phrase that I prefer to say is "speak from the scar, not from the wound." And that's something that one of my coaches gave me, that phrase, and said that phrase, and it really resonates, because what we're saying is we're saying, listen, this was the journey that I went on, and this is the result of what happened, and this is the result of what my clients are getting. I never will say, come and work with me. Yeah, I will say pretty much all of my clients only have one session with me of the therapy aspects of it, but then we bolt coaching on the top of it. But I will never take a client on and promise anything, because it's a two-way process. And I think that's the thing that kind of riles me slightly, is come and do this program and you will get this result. I think it's, you can talk about the results that you get, but each individual person's journey is different, and you've got to work together. And that's where the authenticity comes in. But I think a lot of people are so scared to go, do you know what? It might not work for you. I mean, I always say it's 60-40, 60%, 40% you. And
Yeah.
that's any marketing, therapy, any business. You've got to build those relationships up and go on that journey. And
Yeah.
it's how
Yeah.
much you're going to invest, not just financially, but how much you're going to invest in that process as well. Yeah.
See, and that's the thing. I think, if we made the stories a little bit less spectacular and a little bit more relevant to what we're actually doing, I think that would be coaching in itself, wouldn't it? Or that would be therapy in itself. And it wouldn't revolve around that marketing that everybody hates, that type of, like, overstretched sensationalized type of marketing, but just bringing out that vulnerability and that authenticity that you have in mind, that nobody speaks of. Because I believe that we are being taught by gurus, coaches, or whatever sorts of people, that they need to be sensationalized, that they need to be, this V-dip, it needs to be like you have to go to the very rock bottom in order to kind of become this special, amazing person, which is not really the case. Because bear in mind, there's so many people who are great business owners, great therapists, great marketers, that just don't have a sensational story. They're just doing what they are supposed to be doing. They are low-key. There is nothing spectacular about their journey, as opposed to just hard work, boring stuff,
But I think
mundane tasks,
I think even,
and just getting better.
You said the word hard work. I think my coach calls it saggy boobs, the valley that you're going through. So, but when you talk about that sort of thing, I think that if you're building a business, if you're building a brand, it's not all up. It doesn't have to be a spectacular dip in regards to, I was hit by a truck and then I was in a coma for 6 months. It doesn't have to be that. I think that if you, as somebody, say in marketing, is going, do you know what, these are my struggles, these were the problems that I had, this is what I overcome, this is what I learned, this is all the money that I spent, this is what I did, and I've done all of that work for you so that you don't have to, which is pretty much what I do within my business, is to say, listen, I've spent all the money, I've been on that journey, and this is what it is, therefore you can shortcut that process. You can do what I do. You can not spend the money. You can be in a lack mindset. You can just keep getting beaten up by the universe until you actually clearly do something that you should do. But everybody's got that choice, right? But I think it's that authenticity about that journey. It doesn't have to be tragic, but I think there's that. I will often go on Instagram, and I remember getting told by somebody a few years ago, a coach, that said, don't go on there and tell them that messed up or that went wrong. And I was like, well, why not? That's part of the human experience, right? I will go on Instagram if I'm doing Instagram live if something's gone wrong. But what I'll always do is I will always reflect on, what did I learn on that journey? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about my client? What was it that happened on that? Because I think that's the difference, is that going into the valley and staying there and woe is me, that's not about that. So whatever that mistake is, actually sharing that, okay, do you know what, this happened today with this client, or this is what happened with whatever, and this is what I learned about myself, shows that element of vulnerability, but you're not a victim to that. It shows that you're human. And I think that's what we need to do, is everybody's human. It doesn't matter whether it's a celebrity, whether it's a CEO. We put these people on pedestals, like you said, these gurus, they're just human beings, and we do
Exactly.
tend to put them on this pedestal as though they're something great. They're no better than you are. It's just that they know how to speak their truth a little bit more, or they
Yeah.
know how to flag it, whichever one it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Which leads me to another question. What do you think is the underlying reason that everybody wants to listen to the same types of people? And why does everybody want to modulate or copy what those people do, even though they are on a completely different stage, even then not everything is going to suit you and your particular business, particular model? Why do people, from the mindset point of view, get so excited about the status and the kind of like a celebrity status, right? Or the celebrity factor of those people.
Um, I think it probably goes back to probably Neolithic times. You know, if you were a great hunter, you were feeding the tribe, you would probably be held in quite high esteem. So we still look to those people, you know, the wise men of the village or the wise women of the village. So it's probably part of that primeval nature. I also think that because we have more of an Amazon culture now in regards to the fact that we want it quick, we want it fast. I think that's the other thing. You know, influencers have become massive. You know, you get something going viral on social media and your life can change financially. So I think it's about finance. I think it's about people wanting to think, well, if I do this and show up this way, people think I'm this, therefore I can charge a higher rate, therefore I can get this. But it never works. I mean, when I first started, I kind of did a little bit of that, not too much. But then as soon as I went, I can't do this, it's too tiring. I'm just going to show up as I am and
Yeah,
get
because you have to keep it up, don't you?
yeah, you can't keep up the lie, and people will see through it anyway, energetically.
Yeah.
So, you know, but again, being too authentic, I know has always gone against me, but I think if you can always sit within your values, if you can always sit within, let me give you an example. This is a great example of sitting in my values, but then getting absolutely roasted on social media for it. So
Okay.
I put a post out there, and it was a very interesting post. I said, isn't it interesting that 80% of therapists are female, but 75% of all suicides are men? Right? That's literally all the post was. Which is true. That's true factual data, right? Most therapists in all fields are mainly women, which makes sense because they're caring, they're empathetic. It's the feminine divine, it's not actually female. And then that most of the people who commit suicide are men, because men tend to not congregate together. They ugh, we're on our own, we're just going to go and do what we need to do. And it was just an interesting post. I got called a misogynist, I got called this, I got called like, I'm just putting factual information out there just to make people think a little bit
Mm.
about why is that. So what is that? And I personally believe, obviously I'm a man, right? So I don't necessarily work with men. I actually work with women more than I do with men, which is crazy, right? So what I was trying to say is that there are men out there that have got those empathetic, feminine, divine parts of them, but they also, I always say it's like a Shaolin monk. I say I can meditate, but I will kick your ass. It's kind of that's the way that I look at it. So and I just thought that was really, really interesting. So I think another reason why a lot of people go back to those kind of marketing strategies and all the rest of it is that they're probably scared. It's very difficult nowadays, right? To stand out and go, this is what I believe, this is what I am, because you feel you'll get censored.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because we live in a culture right now that loves to be offended, people are just looking with their whole might of where they can have an argument about something or where they can disagree about a specific thing. But the truth of the matter is, in the business world, it's kind of a reverse thing. We are scared to put ourselves out there and, you know, sometimes get judged or get the comments that somebody disagrees with us because it hurts, right? Nobody wants to be slacked off for what they feel and think, and we would rather like to be liked. We
Yeah,
would
well,
like to be you know, seen. So I think that that might be the reason why we kind of do this copy paste standard messaging, because we're just scared to show who we actually truly
yeah.
are.
And I think so. I do a group coaching thing that I do called Stepping Out of the Valley, and there's 5 elements to it. It's called the facts to abundance. So fear, action, choice, trust, and stepping forward. And I started to look into what is fear. I'm a massive Brené Brown fan. It actually happened. This came to me while I was having a panic attack last year in Italy, which was weird because it came out of nowhere. But being the coach and the therapist, it was like panic attacks coming on. Going, look, let's lean into this. This sounds interesting. What's going to come out of this? And this voice kind of came in my head, and it said, "Fear, the four thieves of happiness: judgment, shame, guilt, and validation." And judgment and validation are very much part of that narrative. Is that I need to validate myself. I need to validate to others. And if I don't, I'll be judged, or I'll judge myself. And if I do that, I'm going to go. So we go in this shame, guilt cycle of judgment, validation, judgment, validation. So it's kind of the mind's there to keep you alive. It's not there to keep you happy, right? So it's going to go to what's easy, familiar, and you perceive works and will be accepted within society. Because again, if we go back, I remember being in Uganda many years ago, and there was some water buffalo on the side of the River Nile. And there was one water buffalo on his own, and there was some crocodiles there. So a friend of mine whose mum lives out there, I said to Sherry, why is that buffalo on its own? And she said, oh, it's been pushed out of the herd. And she went, it'll probably be dead in a few hours because the crocodiles were there, because it was lonely, it was on its own. We were the same millions and millions of years ago.
Yeah, being cast out,
it's
historically speaking.
We don't get enough likes, or we don't have enough followers, right? So it's that same primeval instinct that if I stand out on my own, the crocodile will eat me.
Yeah, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And don't get me wrong, you do, in order to be really good in business, you have to have balls of steel, as I call it, because there will be moments where you will be standing on your own, and the best marketers, the people that stand out the most, are those that are able to stand in their beliefs regardless of the judgment, regardless of the comments, regardless of what is happening. So it takes a lot of grit, it takes a lot of guts to actually stand in that place and say, no, that's what I believe, and I'm not going to change my mind.
Which goes back to what you said originally about people haven't done the inner work and people haven't resolved who they are. We're very codependent, and when we think about codependency, we think about codependency in regards to relationships, but we're codependent on other people as well, right? So whenever I'm working with anybody where it's around relationships, I always say there's that phrase, my other half. Well, we don't want another half, we want another whole. So in business, that's what we're looking for. I know my brand, this is what I'm looking for, this is who I am, this is how I stand up. So I'm looking for another whole in regards to somebody who's going to help me with my business. I'm looking for a relationship, or as Napoleon Hill would say, the mastermind principle, right? Think and grow rich. Now, if you look, this is really interesting as well. When you look at people who are starting on that journey for their business, they're very much, I can't work with that person because they might take my clients, or I can't do this because. But if you look at the people, look at your Tony Robbins's, Marissa Peer, Richard Branson, Elon Musk, it doesn't matter who it is, when they're doing their marketing, they'll go. I mean, there's an event at the moment in Dubai. It's one of the World Summit things. I know Vishen's out there from Mind Valley. He's sharing the stage with Elon Musk and a few other people. So the people who know how to market themselves realize that if they know who they are, and they know their brand, and they know what they stand for, then there is no competition. And Steve Jobs knew that more than anybody else, because he wasn't bothered what Microsoft were doing. He was just doing what he thought. And I think it was when the iPhone came out, I can't remember who it was one of the head guys at Microsoft said, who wants a smartphone that can do all that sort of stuff? I think they were looking to get 10 million or something. And they said they'll never make it. How many of you out there are still using your Windows mobile? You know what I mean? But Steve Jobs, and he was tyrannical, right? He was very focused, and a lot of people didn't like him. But he built the company that Apple is today, and he failed because he got fired from there. And I think the biggest thing that he learned was when he went to Pixar. Because I remember before he went to Pixar, when he got fired, there was an article, I think it was the New York Times, saying what all the tech specs of the new Apple was. When he came back from Pixar and came back into Apple, they put the same an advert out again. It just had the Apple logo, and it said #think differently.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we overcomplicate our marketing as well, rather than just going
Oh,
keep it simple.
definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. What you said is super interesting. And that actually leads me to my other question. And it's kind of twofold because coming back to our topic today, about copying, about the fear and all of that, there's two things that you've mentioned here that are super important. One is standing in your messaging, and the second is the innovation, which, like, I said in my intro, there comes a time in every business world, in every industry, where things just become stale and an innovation is needed. But in order to be innovative, you people that you've mentioned, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, those are people who had brilliant minds, and minds that thought, in a way that were way before the time that those things, could actually pick up, meaning that when they first gone out, the public, the audience was not prepared for them. And I think it's the same, on a smaller scale, because obviously we are talking to normal everyday people, coaches. We are not talking to billionaires. um,
You never know.
it's a journey. It's a journey. It's a
Yeah.
journey, right? And a lot of people kind of, when they try and compare themselves to those huge figures, they think, oh, I need to immediately kind of be this big person with this big idea. No, you're going to find it. It's a process, it's a journey. First, you need to find your messaging. You need to find who you actually are, what you want to represent as a personal brand or as a person, as a human being, because it's not just business, right? It's marketing, can be marketing ourselves on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So it takes time to kind of grow into yourself before you are even able to innovate and propose things for when the people are going to be ready to listen to you.
But I think also, I think going through that process and messing it up, I haven't got it perfect yet, but I remember when I started.
Oh, wow.
And,
It's
you
a
know,
process.
so,
It's a
so the
it
process, the
carries on.
process is failure. I mean, if you look at any great person and track where they were in their history, I mean, Einstein is a perfect example of somebody who we hold up as, not from a marketing point of view, but hold up as this great physics person, that we know all this stuff. How many doors were shut in his face? You know, True entrepreneurs and people who do well are those that just they believe in what they believe in, and the failure is hard,
Yeah.
and the knockdowns are hard, but you just got to keep getting up and going again. And what I always try and do is to say, whether it's good or whether it's bad, is don't think of it as a failure, think of it as a lesson,
Yeah.
because the universe is always giving you what you need, not what you want. Right? So if things are going wrong, they're not going wrong, they're going the right thing. It's like karma, right? You'll keep repeating the same thing.
And also because that's the way it works. Every single time you do it, you're going to do it in a better way. And sometimes we underestimate the avenues that our mistakes can take us, because we get inspired naturally when we do fail. We get inspired by different things, right? Different things that we were focused on before. I'm sure you will agree. And
Yeah.
that kind of opens up a whole new area of the way we think, a whole new area of creativity that we can then take and implement into what we've been doing and improve upon what we've been doing in a completely different way that we never thought possible before.
Mm. And I think one of the greatest phrases that I love is from a brilliant coach, Rich Litvin. I don't know if you know Rich Litvin, but he's
Yeah.
he's amazing. And one of the best bits of advice that I remember Rich posted in the group that I'm in, and he said, remember, just slow down to speed up. Slow down to speed up. And I think, I know me personally, in anything I do, I tend to go, right, what are all the options, throw them out there. And then I'll try and pull them back. And I'm still doing that. I'm still pulling them back.
Mm.
And it goes back to that thing that Steve Jobs did with Apple. Once you get that one phrase or that one thing and you just repeat that message, people just get to, you look at all the great brands, Volkswagen, the drive of your life. I can't think of any of us off the top of my head, but they've all got a strap line, haven't they? There's always just one thing that it doesn't matter what they say, that's always there, but it's not cheesy. It hits you here. So many of us are still, how do I do this? Think, 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 think. We need to drop that in and go, how do I feel about that? How does that represent me? How do I want to show up in the world? However that is. And don't
Mm.
try to please everybody, because you're not.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not.
I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, those phrases that you're mentioning. It's something that will cause people to actually take action or make them feel something or make them emotionally attached. I mean, mine is as simple as it gets. It's increase your profits, reclaim your time.
Mm.
Because I believe that whatever money you acquire in the course of building a business is never going to satisfy or fulfill you entirely if you don't have time to enjoy it. So,
And that's where marketing and PR, I think another thing that's really useful to separate here, and it's only something that recently that I've started to really look into, is that when we look at PR and marketing, we really merge them together, but
yeah.
they're two separate things. So if I was going to give any advice to anybody if they're starting, maybe don't start with marketing, start with PR, because PR is about trust. PR is about who you are. PR is about you building relationships. Once you've built those relationships, then you can put your product on the back of it. And this is one of the things that I think that if I was to reflect on the biggest mistake that I made is the people who are successful in their businesses with marketing have already gained the trust. They've already got a network and they've already got access to market. So if you've got those three things in place, then when you put your offers out there, more likely you're going to pull people in. And I think that's really important. So it's building connection. And PR doesn't mean you have to go to get, a PR agency.
Yeah.
It's just showing up as who you are. And I've had many clients who have been following me for say 3 years. And then eventually they pick the phone up or they send the email or they drop the message. Go, I've
See,
been
that's
following.
another thing. That's another thing. It takes time. A lot of, most of the time, it takes time to know a person. It takes time to build that connection with them. And people just want to, like you said, do this fast food kind of,
Yeah.
form of a business, which
That's
doesn't
what
really
we see on
work.
TikTok, right? That's what we see. We see the 1% of people who are out there, you know, they've made it. They just happen to be lucky. Have they? Or have they
No, really,
been doing a
because
lot
they
of
have
work?
like
Have they been
20
doing the
years
work, but
behind
we
them.
don't know about it, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but nobody talks about it, and I think
Yeah.
that's the main issue is that those people, especially, should represent the other point of view. It took me a long while. It wasn't overnight. It took me a long time, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of nights that I cried in my pillow. And I'm on my third business currently. It's not like I've been in marketing for 17 years now. It's not like I just woke up one day and just felt like, oh, yes, I'm so good at I'm still learning. There's so many things that I don't know, but I am willing to accept that I don't know them, first of all. And I am willing to learn every single day whilst I grow.
Yeah,
Like you said,
you
we're
have to.
always in the process. It never ends.
It's like the Picasso story, isn't it? Have you heard that? I think it was Pablo Picasso. He was in a cafe and he was doodling. He was making a drawing on a piece of paper.
Okay, I haven't heard it.
Oh,
Go
you've
on.
not heard this one, right? So he's drawing on a piece of paper, whatever it is he's drawing, and he's famous. He's Pablo Picasso, and he screws the piece of paper up, and somebody stops him as he's about to throw it in the bin and says, "Oh, you're Pablo Picasso." And they said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can I have that?" And he went, "Yes, it's 10,000, whatever it was. We'll say dollars. It wasn't dollars, like $10,000." And the person said, "Well, wait, why is it $10,000? It took you like 30 seconds to draw it, and then you screwed it up, and you're going to throw it in the bin." He said, "It took me 30 seconds to draw it, but it took like 30 years to be able to know how to draw it."
There you go. There you go.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing, and this is where, going back to that money thing, I think that because people are money focused, they might do a marketing course, or they might go on there, and then all of a sudden they're going, "I'm going to go high ticket items, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to promise this." This fake it till you make it in that way is disingenuous.
Yeah.
It's disingenuous because what it's saying is you're just copying somebody else and hoping that you'll be able to get that result.
Yeah.
And so this is where I go, that's not marketing. This is where it is because they've got the gab and they've got the tactics and they look as though they know what they're doing, but actually what they're looking after is their pocket. Whereas I think what we're talking about is, and I agree with you 100%, when it works is when I invest in you, I invest in a business, or when I invest in somebody else, that then the investment that I put in does give me a return, and then I can go back again. We're both winning. Now we're playing the game. Now we're in that mastermind, and we're now both moving up the scale.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and that's what it's about. And people forget that any business partnership, even with clients, with other people that are supporting you, your accountant or whatever it is, we should be looking to grow each other's abundance, our wealth. It's not horrible to have money, right? Because if you're doing it for the right reason, money is energy. So the more energy you've got, if you're really passionate about what you do, then you can make more of a real impact. And I think the problem is that people are doing this for money because they think that money will give them status, and money will give them this, and money will give them that. It's have you ever heard the story about having crabs?
No.
Sorry, it's not like an STI. Don't worry. Um, so there was some researchers. I can't remember what it was. Some researchers.
Believe it or not, I'm so pure that I have not even thought about that for
Yeah,
one
yeah.
second.
Valentine's Day, we're doing this recording, everybody. So you know, protect yourself. No. So what they did is some researchers got a load of crabs off the ocean floor and they put them in a bucket. And what they observed was that every time one crab tried to rise to the top,
Oh, I know. The other ones were pulling them
the other
down.
one would either pull them down or they would step on them. And
Mm,
that's sometimes what business feels like. That's sometimes what marketing feels like.
yeah.
It's that thing of, oh, I can help push you up, but then as you get a grip hold, I'm going to use you to climb over you.
Mm,
So I think that's why there's a lot of, in the marketing industry, think that's where a lot of that comes from. And I think people do go into the marketing industry because it can be glamorous. You know, it can afford you opportunities if you do well to go and do stuff. It can be lucrative, right?
yeah.
And it is important. Without a shadow of a doubt, marketing and your PR, you're not going to grow your business without it unless you're very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Unless you're very, very lucky.
I
It
don't
is.
I don't think you will at all because it is part of business. You
Mm.
need to learn two things, marketing and sales.
Yeah,
If
and
you
most of us don't do that. You know, I always used to say I hate sales. But I always try to say I serve, I don't sell. But one of the hardest things that I had to go through was to sit in my own value. That, you know, that was one of the hardest, especially if you're an empath, if you want to help people, not that I like labels, but if you want to help people and you, oh, I'll do that for you, I'll do that for you. But you I think the biggest tip I can give to people if they're spending money or they're doing anything and you're struggling, just change the word to energy. How
Mm,
much energy am I putting into this? So again, if you have got a successful business, but you're doing all your own marketing, are you in your zone of genius? It's at that point that then it's worth going looking out and going, right, I'm in my zone of genius over here. This is what I want to be doing. This is where my joy is. I think many business owners, they do get in that state where they go, I don't love doing what I'm doing anymore because I'm not doing it. I'm doing the
yeah.
easy, not doing the thing that I started to do to get the freedom. And I'll put my hand up. I'm still in there. I'm a control freak, you know. But when you
We
go
can't
back,
bring control freak here.
yeah. But when you find the people that you can trust and the people that get your message and get what you're aligned, it's at that point, yeah, you can probably make that switch, right? And again, I think a lot of people when they're starting out, especially if they haven't got money, it can be really tricky. You've got to work at it sometimes with marketing. Go right, I've got X amount of money to spend. I've got X amount of money to lose. It may work, it may not.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is sometimes a difficult game, and I think that's where the mistrust comes, is because
And understanding that on different stages of your business, you're going to use different marketing tactics, right? You're not going to go immediately out there with reviews and testimonials because you don't have them. You need to focus on different aspects. It's not really beneficial to try and be like everybody else and just throw out bank statements of how much I'm earning because that will come out eventually as well and it will backfire quite a lot. In fact, there's a lot of very well-known people who are in very big financial trouble, but they are still doing the rah, 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 I'm so great. There's so many people having court cases right now, very well-known people, not going to mention names here. But they kind of present that facade. It's never good because it always comes out. And you will, as a customer, working with those people, you will feel horrible. And I'm sure that those people are not having the easiest day today as well. So coming back a few steps back, because I know that a lot of people listening to us will say, that's fine, that's great, you guys are saying everything correctly. but I am just too scared to go out there and be myself. So, because you've worked with a lot of people in terms of overcoming fear, in terms of, changing the mindset, in terms of the empowerment factor, what would you say is the first step to grow into yourself or to start that journey of becoming yourself or being able to speak your truth?
I think the first thing is to just recognize that it's human and we all go through it, and there's nothing you. I think I specialize in anxiety and PTSD and confidence and empowerment and all that sort of stuff. And what I would say is, this is the rationale I always give to people. If you're thirsty, right? How do you know? You feel thirsty, right? If you feel hungry, how do you know? You feel hungry. So why is it if you feel this overwhelm or you feel this, I'm not good enough, I'm different, why is it that that feeling is not working for you for your best good? Because there's two parts to everything that we tell ourselves. Okay. And actually, this leads into marketing, right? So we have a story or a message that we tell ourselves, and then we attach a feeling to it. Okay. That's the human condition. That's how we navigate the world. The feeling is always working for you. The feeling, that gut feeling, don't trust that. Oh, yeah, I like that. We get that energy, right? But if we've got a familiar story and a familiar feeling, and we do that enough times, then the mind becomes used to it. I don't. Have you read the book The Chimp Paradox? Have you ever
I
read
have,
it?
yes.
Okay, so you'll know there's like three parts to the body, right? There's the mind, there's the computer, the chimp, and the human. We're really scared of showing up as the human. And the computer's being programmed by everybody, by the human, the chimp, and everybody else. But the chimp's the quickest one that's going to get to the computer.
Mm.
So this is the problem. As the human, as the true authentic self, you need to be able to empower yourself to be able to influence the chimp, so that when the chimp does go to the computer, because they're going to, when that feeling kicks in, it's going to read, the computer's going to give it a different message.
Hmm. So what would be the first practical step? Because, and I was smiling when you were talking because I just recently literally had a conversation with one of my clients and I had a realization myself. Sometimes, I get so inspired by my own clients that I get realizations in the moment. And the fact of the matter is, I've just realized that my biggest success showed up after I got over myself.
Yeah.
Like I stopped caring as much of how I perceive myself, even how others perceive me, and got over myself in a sense of you're not the most important. Nobody
Yeah, as soon as you
cares.
realise you're not the centre of the universe.
You're not.
Nathan said this on the CEO, Stephen Bartlett's podcast, the CEO of the Diary of a CEO. And he said, as soon as you realise you're not the centre of the earth and everybody's going through the same thing, actually life's just a little bit easier.
Oh my God, it is. And it kind of, it kind of ties into what we're saying here because the first step in my belief to actually overcome that fear is to understand that even if you say something, probably 99.9% people will not care. So it doesn't really matter. But the people
Yeah.
that will care are your people. Those people that are supposed to come to you because you're either going to empower them, like you're saying, or you're going to aggravate them, which is great either way because it causes an emotion. And that's what marketing essentially is.
Well, here you go. This is probably a classic marketing thing, isn't it? Right. So going back to that phrase by Simon Sinek, people don't know it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? So most people, if they're introducing themselves, they'd probably say, hi, I'm Marcus Matthews. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and this is what I do.
Mm.
And most people's reaction is going to be,
Yeah. That's great.
because if you want to build a house, for example, and you speak to the builder, you really don't give a rat's ass what saw or hammer they're using and what make that saw or hammer is using, what tool they're using to do it, right? What you want to see is what's the result of what that person's built. What does it look like, those houses that they've built before? What's the result of that? And that's why I kind of changed my strap line to saying, hi, I'm Marcus Matthews, and I help men and women. Oh God, I can't say it now. But I'm Marcus Matthews, and I help professional men and women go from suck to success, right? Because it's just a little bit cheesy.
Yeah.
And I empower them to change their lives. That's what I do. You're not bothered how I do it. You just go, I'm a professional. Life sucks a little bit more at the moment. This guy says that he can change that around for me. And actually what he's going to do is he's going to give me the tools to be able to do that. rather than me having to go and pay him every week to go and talk about my problems, right? Because that's where I was when I was in that really dark valley. I didn't want to spend weeks, months, and years in therapy. I wanted to just go, why do I feel this way? What's the root cause of the problem, so I can resolve it and move on with my life.
Love that. Love that. Love
Okay.
that. See, it's either in a message or in a personality or whatever
Yeah.
else. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not real, then there's going to be this disconnect even when you start working with people, right? And in my case, it's actually, you know, I tell people up front, if you don't like sarcasm and sexual innuendos that I do, you know, when explaining certain business things, then you're probably not going to love me. You're probably not going to want to work with me because
basically,
I'm going to do
my
that.
Shaggy Doo thing did come in handy. You got that then, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just be yourself, just step out. And I think this ties in nicely and kind of wraps up our topic here. And you know, I know that we're going to continue this in part 2, and I would like to already invite you guys, if you like this episode and the way we are actually conducting things here, the way we are doing those interviews, or they're not really interviews, are they? They're just like conversations. We're allowing people to actually show their real self and give their opinions and show who they really are. If you like that, guys, of course, don't forget to give a thumbs up, like, love, and leave us a little review if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms. But we're going to actually continue this conversation in part 2 on Marcus's podcast. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to you now. Where can people find you? What is the way to connect with you? What is the name of the podcast? Where can people find all of those things?
Yeah, so the podcast is Talking Minds, and you can find that on the usual podcast platforms. I'll go to talkingminds.co.uk. In regards to my main kind of website, that's makeyourlifecount.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram, which is Marcus A. Matthews on Instagram. Facebook, Make Your Life Count UK. Yeah, just basically just put it in Google and I'll probably come up somewhere.
And to make it easier for you guys, we're of course, as usual, going to put it in the description box of this video on YouTube and in the description of the podcast underneath the episode. So you don't have to look around, and it's going to be easy access if you have some sort of challenge to overcome, or you wish to empower yourself, or you wish to go through certain traumas. Marcus is your guy, and yeah, connect with him. Absolutely. Exactly. So you can, people that on the podcast don't see it, Marcus has just showed a bleeping text that I can't say on YouTube because we will be wiped off the face of the earth, which we don't want. But yeah, if you want to see what he showed, of course, get yourself to watch the video on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, it said just do it, but in a more to the point way. Let's just say it. Yes. In a punchy way. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us this week. Of course, you're going to see me in Habits of Influence and my next guest next week. And like I said, share, subscribe, love, and of course, subscribe to Marcus's podcast as well, and connect with him if you need to do so. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Marcus. It's been a pleasure as usual. I could talk to you all day, but let's just continue this another day.
Continue it on my podcast later on.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. Love you. Bye-bye.